I want to transition into one of our first panels of the conference. Now, keep in mind, you're going to hear from 4 dynamic panel discussions. And the first one is my pleasure to introduce mental health and well-being. And this is a very, very pertinent topic because as we're all going through this pandemic together, many have raised up the dialogue. How are we able to sustain our mental resilience during this time? And so I'm really pleased to welcome our moderator, Seema Kumar, the Vice President of Innovation and Global Health and Policy Communication at Johnson & Johnson. Please give her a warm virtual applause as she kicks off this dynamic and probably most important discussion of this series. Back to you, Seema. Welcome to the YMCA conference.
Thank you, Christine, and good morning, everybody. Good morning from New Jersey. I am Seema Kumar from Johnson & Johnson, and it's a real pleasure to be talking with all of you and to moderate this panel. A little bit about Johnson & Johnson and about me. I focus on a few things at Johnson & Johnson. One, health and well-being is very important for, as the largest healthcare company, in the world. For us, health and mental health especially and well-being is really important. And especially during these unprecedented times as we go through the COVID crisis, mental health is something that we have to pay particular attention to. You all may know, but if you don't know, I just want to tell you that Johnson & Johnson is working 24/7 on a vaccine against COVID. And we have many, many, many young scientists across the globe who work for Johnson & Johnson, who are working 24/7 to get us to a vaccine by the end of this year or by early next year. So while we wait for the vaccine and on the road to a vaccine, we have to make sure that we have the mental health and resilience and take care of our body, mind, and spirit, and have the resilience to go through this road while the vaccine is coming. And mental health is especially important because already even before COVID, mental health accounted for 18% of the global burden of disease and injury in people aged 10 to 19 years. And half of all of the mental health conditions start by 14 years of age, and most cases are undetected and untreated. And depression, of course, is one of the leading causes of illness and disability among the youth. Now, you take all of this already pre-COVID and you layer in COVID on top of it, and all the social distancing and the crises that we're going through, mental health and well-being takes on an even more, a bigger role and importance. So I urge all of you to make sure that you take care of yourselves, be leaders in your community, take care of your own body, mind, and spirit, but also be there to support others who might be going through very difficult times. A couple more words and then I'll kick off the panel. I want to say that science and technology are great solutions for us to tackle the COVID crisis. And I have full belief in the science and technology that we are going to get through this. And we will be out of that other side of the COVID. And for us to sort of get to recovery and build the future that we want, all of us need to work together and build communities. So finally, I just want to say that I have a passion for storytelling because I think that is one of the biggest ways to raise awareness. And we recently launched a series, a LinkedIn live series called Road to a Vaccine. So please do tune in to that to learn more about where we are with the vaccine for COVID. And I'm really pleased to be here today on behalf of the World YMCA and talk to the outstanding panelists that we have here. So I'm going to just quickly mention the panelists and then ask them to introduce themselves. We have Martin Johnson, we have Marlon Solis, we have Phyllis Wanja, and we have Kachik Gosen. So with that, let me ask Martin to kick us off and introduce himself. Martin?
Hello everyone, glad to be here. And thanks so much, Seema. Looking forward to receiving the questions, talking to you. And if you have any questions, then please put them in the chat. Yeah, that's me.
That's great. Marlon?
Hi everyone. I'm really glad to be here. I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I'm glad to answer your questions related to mental health and youth.
Thank you. Phyllis?
Hi everyone, I'm from Kenya and I'm happy to be here and I'm ready to answer questions, especially concerning suicide. Thank you.
And Kachik?
Hello, everyone. I'm happily representing YMCA Lebanon. I'm a social worker and I'm ready to your questions.
Great, thank you. Let me first ask a question, the first set of questions. First to Martin. Martin, at Johnson & Johnson, we believe that storytelling is a powerful way to educate and inspire people. So tell us why you're passionate about storytelling and how that can help address mental health among young people.
No worries. Thanks, Seema. So storytelling is such an important way to educate and influence people. We know young people prefer to hear from their peers on issues that matter to them most. Your mental health can feel very personal, and young people want to be able to share that with only people that they trust. So we know that people are going through, and we want to be able to help each other by hearing what helps other people manage. Just like the YMCA, it takes many people to make a great organization. It also takes many different methods and strategies to manage and find what works for someone who is potentially struggling with their mental health.
Thank you. Marlon, next question is for you. Your work is about inclusion and building a sense of belonging and safety for people who may feel like outsiders. What mental health issues are unique to newcomers and to underrepresented groups?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to mental health, it's so important to recognize that diversity is very integral to that, because diversity is not just about culture, nor is it just a symbol, but a fact of life. And it dictates what a person, or in their context, what their coping strategies are, what their sources of resiliencies, and what can be traumatic for certain people. And that's not always understood by other people as well. And so within the Canadian context as well, with youth and mental health, what we see with newcomers is that there's always that assumption that dominant culture usually speaks on behalf or in totality of all groups, that what causes a sense of deficiency. It implies that people, especially from underrepresented groups, are brought when they arrive to Canada or like other places from another region, they're assumed to be deficient because they don't conform to that sort of standard. And what's also important is that especially with underrepresented youth, there's always a pressure to constantly navigate between two or more cultures, and that pressure bears on that responsibility to always either choose between the two, and that can cause conflicts. And especially when intergeneration trauma is involved, especially from youth or from families or from people from historically colonized groups, there's that often ignored aspect of internalized racism or internalized rhetoric, where negative stereotypes are usually internalized by people, and it creates almost like traumas like symptoms that are often unaddressed or unrecognizable. And so even when barriers to social barriers, physical, social barriers are dropped, people who do experience internalized racism are unable to take the step to participate in contributing to society as well. And so, and another thing for newcomers, when they come here, an economic status change is evident. Usually it's from newcomers who are from, when that change happens, their priorities suddenly change. And so when it comes, especially for youth, the priorities for finding a job, taking care of the family, having additional roles sort of takes priority over something that usually would be seen as an opportunity for most youth who are already grown up within a host country. So they won't have time to do sports. They won't have time to do any extracurricular activities because these priorities take place. And so those are some of the common challenges that I noticed with newcomers.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question is for Phyllis. Phyllis, at J&J, we are always deeply concerned about the rising number of suicide and depression among young people. And we talk about medicine's healing, but we're also big believers in the power of art to heal and of communications and storytelling to reduce the stigma in mental health. How does art heal, and why is it so powerful to address mental health issues at a more than a physical level? Phyllis?
Thank you, Sima. First of all, I'll start by saying art is therapy, and it's a kind of form of therapy that where you use paintings, drawings, can sing, dance, and it helps you improve your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. I'll tell my story briefly by this. When I was actually 10 years old, I was in class 6 here in Kenya, and I remember I used to struggle with self-esteem. I used to struggle with appreciating myself, loving myself for who I am. I'd compare myself with people. I'd struggle with accepting myself as important. So I realized that I could draw, and that used to keep me far away from these thoughts of I'm not good enough. So one time I went to school. I don't know if you can see. Can you see this?
Yes, we can see it.
So
Yeah.
this is a piece of art. You see it?
Yeah.
It's a piece of art I did for 1 month. I went to school, and I was enrolled in an art school where I started drawing, and I took 1 month to draw that piece, but it was so different. I was able to connect with myself. And one thing I'll say is art is therapy. It helps you resolve issues that are deep within you. It helps you manage yourself, your behaviors, your feelings, reduce that stress that is there, the anxiety. And it helps you improve your self-esteem. Because for me, in as much as I knew I was not good enough, something good came out of it. And I didn't know that something good lives in me. So what I'd say is this can be used it's very powerful, can be used in rehabs. We're actually moving to that direction. We have used it with young people. We have used it with different kind of people in different sections. So yes, art is therapy, and it's very powerful to bring peace and develop good behaviors that are from deep within. That's what I can say.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful piece of art. And I see another piece of art behind you.
Yeah, I'll actually talk about it.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's great. Yes. I mean, art, storytelling, creative forms can be such a healing way to resolve sort of inner issues. So thank you for sharing that. And
Thank you.
Kachik, you're working with victims of terrorism today in Lebanon. What mental health challenges are faced by victims of violence, and how might those differ from other mental health challenges?
Thank you for your question. Just a general brief that in Lebanon, there was a study that was made by the Mental Health Innovation Network, showed that almost 90% of Lebanese population don't have access to treatment. And this is due to limited resources and high levels to stigma when it comes to mental health. And when it comes to reaching out to someone to talk when you have difficulties or challenges. And when it comes to people who are victims of terrorism, we know that they are directly linked with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a psychiatric disorder that can occur in people when they are facing a sudden and traumatic experience that can be a natural disaster or can be a violence act. If we want to explain post-traumatic stress disorder in details, we can say that it affects the body and the mind. So we have different components that are being targeted. A few examples: we have intense feelings of distress, we have extreme physical reactions to reminders of trauma, we have the feeling of guilt, hopelessness, we have nightmares, flashback. So there are many differences between the mental health components and the physical health that are being affected by this post-traumatic stress disorder that is occurring with people who are victims of terrorism.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to do one more round of questions across the panelists, and then we will take some audience Q&A. So I'm going to go to Martin again. Martin, talk to us a little bit about what the Inside Our Minds program is and how people can get involved. And also, why did you choose to work with Headspace? Tell us about that.
Sure. So as we were seeing with Phyllis, there's obviously many different ways that people can use to manage with their mental health. We know that 1 in 4 young people will suffer with a mental health issue before the age of 30. So the Inside Our Minds campaign gives voice to young people, for young people that have suffered and are managing with a mental health issue. So during Mental Health Week in October in Australia here, we share the voices through video of 7 young people over 7 days, giving them a chance to hear from like-minded people about their struggles, how they think inside their minds and the tools that they use to manage. So in Australia, this is shared online. It's shared in the schools and in the universities. So this year we're looking for the campaign to be seen in more places and spaces. So anyone can get involved in 3 different ways. You can choose to run the campaign at your local level with your friends and other young people. I'll put my details below in the chat once this panel is over. They can contribute in Australia just by sharing the videos that I'll create this year with Headspace, with their friends and their family. Or they can support the development or the funding of this initiative to expand and grow by helping with resources and other things to make it as big as it can be. So I chose to work with Headspace because I think it's really important for organizations to collaborate and companies to work together, like what Carlos was saying, to support each other, to be stronger with more networks, people and funding as a collective. Especially now more than ever with COVID, this year I've chosen to work with Headspace, as although that we as the YMCA have the platforms and the vision for young people, we're not the experts on mental health, and they know mental health really well. So when starting any campaign, you should know your strengths and your weaknesses. It's okay not to have all the answers, and to work with those that do. We are the oldest non-for-profit youth organization in the world, and that means something to people. So we have the power to connect and strengthen our footprint by collaborating with other organizations and companies to share our values and beliefs with young people, being the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin. And, you know, it's the power of the collective and of collaboration cannot be understated because, you know, it really amplifies and multiplies, you know, individual efforts. On the flip side, though, Marlon, you know, empowering individuals can create change at a broader community level as well, right? Talk a little bit about why that is important and why working at the individual level can have this multiplier effect for the community.
Definitely. So within the individual level, there's always a multitude of facets and contexts that inform someone's perspectives and understanding of the world. And it's not just within underrepresented groups. Everyone in the world has been influenced by diverse contexts and diverse perspectives. And it's so important to understand that, especially with coming back with underrepresented groups, the articulation of needs is so important when it comes to empowering individuals. And through that articulation of needs, especially when it comes to getting past sort of that stereotype that a certain standard speaks behalf of everybody. And I'm talking from the Canadian context where I'm from, where it's usually the Euro-Western standard that usually speaks on behalf of everyone. Underrepresented groups can definitely benefit from my experience, the articulation of their needs to create adaptive programming. And with that, and in order to foster that, it requires representative mentorship. Someone from that represents someone's identity in a very that can speak directly to that context because they are from that context as well. This helps with the articulation of those needs. And from there, it's not just to the fact that those needs need to be heard, but they are the venue for the individual to access mechanisms of power and change to create social context and progress. So it's not just a symbol, nor is it a token. Those needs need to define and continue to contribute to culture.
Thank you so much. Now, Phyllis, you are running a campaign, a mass campaign, to encourage people to speak up and to address, mental health issues. Talk a little bit about the campaign and how it's going.
Okay, thank you again. So Toa Mask is a campaign that has been running since 2019. Toa is a Swahili word meaning take it off. And I will use, I'm a cartoonist, so I'll use art to show you what we really mean by tour mask. So the first thing, I'll combine depression and tour mask campaign to explain everything. So the first thing is, we understand that depression is a mood disorder that comes in when, it's normal to be sad, but when it goes to more than 2 weeks and affects your normal way of doing things, that's actually something that needs to be of concern. So the first thing is this, can you see?
Yeah.
Depression is quiet. It doesn't just come knocking at your door. That's the first thing, okay? Then the second one is this.
Yeah.
And I'll read the readings, and much like a mask, people hide it with a smile. So every morning we wake up in the morning, we put on this mask and go to our normal activities. And I'll put on my mask right now. And it doesn't mean that our masks look like this. It's just an illustration. So this is how we look like, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So I wear a mask every day, going out, meeting my friends, smiling to everyone, showing them how happy I am with my life, but deep inside I'm dying. So this is it. Nobody can detect it but yourself. You know very well that you haven't slept for days. You know very well you have no appetite to eat, but what you do is post good pictures about you, how your life is perfect, and yet you're not okay. Then everybody reaches a breaking point. We are not perfect. We are human beings. We're not God. Sorry to say, we normally get to breaking points, and it's still okay. So that's what you're saying. It is okay. It is okay not to be okay. It is okay to feel all these feelings, and we are here to help you for that, okay? And then one thing about depression is that you can never hide it forever. If it's not you who is going to note, someone else will note it. That people will see you don't do the things you normally used to do. And this is it. You won't hide it forever. The truth will come out. Yeah? And lastly, this is what we are saying. Do not be ashamed that you're having all these struggles. I'm a human being, I've gone through this, and it's still okay not to be okay. So what you're saying is, as you can see in the photo, do not be ashamed, take off that mask, because there are people who understand. And in our campaign, we say, to our mask campaign, we want you the way you are. We want the hopelessness, the helplessness that you're going through. We want to communicate with the real you, because what is suicide? Suicide is taking your own life. People are dying at their homes. People are self-harming. People are poisoning themselves. People are buying things that can harm them. Why not help them? And all those people who are dying by suicide, they're not cowards. There are people who have just lost hope. They didn't have any solution to look at so that they can see there is another reason to be alive. So let's fight. Let's say to a mass campaign, and we say that you're precious, you're important, and we love you. You're needed. I need you in this life. I want you to be there with me when I'm 90, if I'll be there. So if someone dies by suicide, let's stop putting it that criminal offense. It's a problem. Depression is an illness. And lastly, so the many things I normally say about to a mass campaign is this. This can be you every day. Your mind is out of order. As you can see, we have this man here. You can't really reason. Your mind is just clogged, and it is okay. And these kind of thoughts that come in your mind all the time, we tell ourselves that we are ugly, we are useless, we don't see anything important, positive in our lives. We just say that we can't do anything. We're always anxious, we panic all the time. It is okay. Call me, text me, reach out to me, we will work together. And that is what #ToAMask campaign is all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you sharing this with us. And what a powerful campaign. I think one of the key pieces about mental health is about stigma. And I think we need to continue to work hard every single day to eliminate the stigma. So it's okay to be not okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to talk about the fact that you have feelings that maybe you have someone else to talk about. So I think, and to have hope. I thank you so much for sharing that story. I really, really appreciate it. I want to now go to Kaching, and you tell us a little bit about your studies in psychosomatic intervention. I mean, what does that mean, and how can that help?
Yes, I'm currently studying psychosomatic intervention, and the word psychosomatic, if we divide it, we have the body and the soul. So a psychosomatic disorder that we might see at many people is a disease involving both mind and body. Let's remind that our beautiful bodies are maps. So when we have stress or when we have anxieties, sometimes we can, it's our soul that's sending us message to our body, like there is something wrong, especially when we don't have the opportunity to reach out. I can give a few examples: eczema, body pain, headache. So many mental illnesses can be visible through our bodies, which are a representation of what's going on inside. And when it comes to stigma or motivating young people to reach out, I would like to say that us at the YMCA Lebanon, we are currently using methods to reach out to people, especially young people and youth. We are using all social media platforms on our pages, YMCA Lebanon Empowering Youth, and we are having every week a team. Till now, we had teams about communication, about mental health, about personal development, and every Tuesday we are dedicating this day to mental health, and every Wednesday we are dedicating to physical health. And I just would like to say that every Friday we have a panel to discuss many topics and really to raise the word and to give the opportunity to young people to participate. And we are inviting those people to participate because we believe that a message is delivered quickly and smoothly from young people to young people, especially when it comes to raising awareness on the importance of reaching out to someone. And you can follow our work on all our social media platforms, YMCA Lebanon Empowering Youth, and you can interact with us as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we have maybe a couple of minutes to take a few Q&As. So let me take a look at one or two of the questions. I think one question from Pascal Rosenthal is, how do we make therapy relevant in respect to it being a preventative care treatment? Does anyone want to take that? How about you, Martin?
I don't think I should speak for that one.
Anybody else wanted to take that? Well, let me take that.
Yeah.
One of the things I think, at least at Johnson & Johnson, as we look at the entire spectrum of mental health and how to address mental health, we look at therapy as well as both medicinal therapy, but also things like art therapy and storytelling, sharing of experiences, all of it together as a whole integrated way of looking at mental health. So everything actually has its place. And so if you combine all of that, therapy, supportive care, medicines, but also different forms of therapy, as we just heard the example of art therapy, that kind of holistic way of addressing mental health is what's required. And I'll take one last question here, and then I think we should move on to the next panel, and I'll turn it back over to Christine. I think the question that is coming from Mary is, what are your biggest challenges to having your voice heard and your ideas implemented at the YMCA? Anybody want to go?
I could speak briefly about that.
Yep.
I think always having to sell or propose your initiative is constantly like a big pressure. And usually that creates a bit of boundaries when it comes for youth to be able to propose their ideas. So constantly always have to sell their idea to the next person, to the next person, to the next person is usually a challenge, and having to educate everyone on that initiative. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think I could probably go the same as Marlon there. Having to consistently sell your message on and on is quite difficult, but obviously with these types of platforms, getting your voice out there about these types of campaigns is amazing. And to be able to collaborate with people like Phyllis and Marlon and Kaching is perfect, because then you can actually share those ideas and be able to bring them together and kind of use them all at the same time and in conjunction with each other to create a stronger message and work together. So yeah,
that's great. That's an excellent tip, and I think it again speaks to the power of the collective and to the community, the YMCA community, and being able to rely on each other and run ideas by each other. So I know we're at time or over time. So what I want to do is to turn it over to Christine. But before I do that, I just want to say all the panelists, there are many questions on the Q&A box. So if you could go in there and answer that. So to those who are asking the questions, we'll make sure the Q&As are answered. So
thank you
with
so
that,
much.
Christine, back to you.